Hello, and welcome to Grade Expectations. I'm your host, Grade, and today I wanted to talk about the state of the comic market and just the observations that I've had the last couple of months. First of all, we have certainly seen record sales in a lot of comics. A lot of comics have gone through the roof. They've doubled or tripled or just had huge gains in the last couple months. And for me, when I look at that, again, my perspective is as a new collector that has gotten back into comic collecting about a year ago, um, it seems unsustainable. And certainly there are a lot more collectors in the market than there were, a year ago. And supply and demand is important. But we're also seeing people, I think, expecting this to go on forever and expecting the money to continue to pour into the market. And I think we're going to find that people are going to start pulling some of their money out. And so for me right now, I'm a buyer and a seller always. My goal is to amass a small collection of comics that I really like and to make some good money along the way in order to finance my purchase of X-Men 1. And it's coming along, but in order to make money, you've got to sell comics. So what have I been selling lately? I would say a couple months ago, I was selling some of the X-Men CGC keys that I have. So I sold the first appearance of Rogue, Avengers Annual 10. I sold X-Men 266, first appearance of Gambit. I sold an Ultimate Fallout 4, a raw copy, as well as a 9.2 graded copy. And I've also just sold my Hulk 180, and I got pretty good money for it, market value. So I got 3,200 US minus fees, which you know is a great price to get for a 7.5. And is this a comic that I want eventually? Yes, but like you have to pay for the hobby, and you got to make sure that you're selling the comics that are in high demand. And so even Gambit's first appearance, Rogue's first appearance, these are comics that I want to have in my collection and certainly will have at some point. And like when I do sell them, it's with the intention to buy them later when they're not as hot. So what do I mean by that? Well, I was looking at Iron Man 55 today. So that's the first appearance of Thanos and Drax. And when Avengers Endgame came out, that comic, was very expensive. It went through the typical Marvel movie ride where it went up in value, and then afterwards it dropped, and it dropped significantly. And even after the comics going up in price over the last couple months, that comic still hasn't reached the high that it had when Endgame came out. And so that's a comic where do I want to have it long term? Yes. Is now a good time to buy? Maybe, maybe not. But it hasn't had the same demand that some other comics have had right now. So basically, I am selling some of my big comics, and I do expect that you're going to see a pullback as people start to cash out, and that's due to the pandemic not necessarily being over, but the perception that I have other things that I should be spending my money on now. I expected all this money from my Ultimate Fallout 4. I bought it for 3 grand. Now I should sell it. Hopefully I'll get 4 grand, and you're going to find that people start selling off some of those comics. I think. A market can be irrational for longer than you can stay solvent. So, am I selling all my Ultimate Fallout 4s? I have sold all the copies I have except for one. I have a 9.6 graded one. Um, the Edge of Spider-Verse 2, for instance, this is a comic that I bought in the last couple weeks, and I think that the 9.8 market right now is very, very frothy. And I get that this is a modern comic, and that it really, the mentality is 9.8 or bust. I bought a 9.6. I think I paid a really reasonable amount of money compared to what the 9.8 is going for. I pretty much expect, unless there's a real short supply of 9.8s, if it's typical, 9.8 to 9.6 ratio, in my opinion, a 9.8 should be about double what the 9.6 is going for. Whereas right now, Edge of Spider-Verse, you're looking at almost three times for 9.8. So either the 9.8 is overpriced or the 9.6 is underpriced right now. And I think I've seen, some other comics like New Mutants 98 where the 9.6 is reasonable compared to the 9.8. And we might find, 5 years, 10 years from now, that the 9.8 is just so much more desirable than a 9.6. But for me, as a new collector, I'm okay with having the 9.6 on my wall. And to be honest, I have quite a few like 9.6s. Another comic that I sold recently was Amazing Spider-Man 300, First Appearance of Venom. I, if you recall, in my last unboxing, I had two copies, and one came back in 9.4 and one came back in 9.2. I've sold the 9.4, and there are two reasons. First of all, the 9.2 that I've kept is my original copy. So this is the one I bought for $20 back in the 90s, and like read a couple times and kept, in a box for the last 30 years. So it means something to me in that it's really the first one of the few comics that I bought back in the 90s. And second of all, the centering is great on it. The 9.4 I had, the centering was way off where at the top here, the yellow part was almost cut off, like so it'd be too bottom heavy. And it when you actually looked at the two copies next to each other, there was a huge difference. And so the 9.2 to me is a much better aesthetically pleasing copy. And so that's the one I've kept. You're always trying to buy the comic, not buy the grade. And that's an example that I've seen where you want to buy that grade, or sorry, that comic, because the 9.4 I made more money off it, and I would say it wasn't as good a comic. So I'm definitely selling. I am buying some things, and I've really found that my buying and my spending has been cut back in the last couple months. Not because I'm broke or I don't have money to spend. I just think the market is too frothy. Like that opportunity isn't there. And even finding raw copies of books, I haven't found too many raw copies of desirable books in the wild. Really since Christmas. I got a Nix or NYX3 for a very reasonable price. I got a copy of Ultimate Fallout 4 for a very reasonable price. Those those are like flip comics where I've made like doubled my money on them, but they're few and far between lately. Um, I have been buying Wolverine '88. That's the first fight between Deadpool and Wolverine, and the cover's really grown on me. I'll show some of my copies off. I'll actually go through the differences in a future video. Um, I've also bought the Avengers Initiative featuring Reptile, and it's the first appearance of Reptile. He's got like a solo comic, 5-part miniseries coming out right about now. There isn't a lot of hype on that comic. It's about say $30-40 for a near mint copy. and it's just a low entry, low cost of entry to get that comic right now. So I've started picking up a couple of those. Um, you know, I like dinosaurs. You can turn into a dinosaur. That's pretty cool. Keep it up. So, what else have I bought? Um, I have bought a copy of Amazing Spider-Man 55. So this is the second print, 1 in 50 version. It's the sketch variant. And when this came out, the original came out, I bought a few copies on like pre-order. I pre-ordered a few copies just because I liked the cover a lot, and I guess I really didn't understand the hype that can come with a comic that kind of takes time. And so when that Amazing Spider-Man 55 came out, um, I was a little surprised at how much hype there was all of a sudden. Like, you can see the previews of these comics a few months ahead of time. I saw the cover, I loved the cover, and I actually tracked down, I went to Patrick Gleason's website and I bought a CGC 9.8 signed Virgin variant of the first print, and I bought this back in December, the beginning middle of December. There were tons. There were tons of the raws. There were tons of the signed raws, and then both CGC ones. And I didn't buy this as a flip comic. I only bought one copy, and I bought it because I really liked the cover, and I just thought it was different and it was cool and it stood out. And so I ended up buying one of these. And then the hype train started, and I started kicking myself because I probably could have bought hundreds of the raw versions and made a fortune. In the future, when I see something that jumps out at me, I'm going to trust my gut, and I'm going to be more likely to go all in on some things. So with Patrick Gleason, his website, like these are limited. I think they're limited to 3,000 maybe. There's about 300 of the signed CGC 9.8s, and this is the only copy that I have that's a Virgin one. I have a couple raws, and I've sent at least one into CGC to be graded. With the second print on Patrick Gleason's website, he had the Virgins again, so I bought four of the raw second print ones, the black and red. Really like that as well. When they came, I was very disappointed with the condition. And they say on the website 9.2 or better, like store variants and this and that. I bought a number of store variants, and they're always in really high grade, like great condition. I got these second print ones, and they had huge binder tears, and I was shocked, like at how poor they were. And I complained and got nowhere. Bad customer service. And anyway, I never picked up a 1 in 50 version. I inquired about the price and then scoffed when it was like 80 US for a raw one, and I said, that's too much. But in the last couple months, it's really grown on me, and so I ended up biting the bullet and paying full price for a graded one. I figured a lot of them wouldn't come back 9.8, and so might as well have a 9.8 one. This is something where I'm not going to be selling it anytime soon, and it's just going in the collection. This will be a future classic cover. Going back to Patrick Gleason's website, I also bought four raw Virgin third prints, and I also bought the Carnage Black, White, and Blood Virgin as well. And with the intention of sending a couple to CGC, keeping one each, and maybe selling off a raw or two to pay for the other ones. I still haven't received the third print or the Carnage ones, so I'm a little shocked on how long this is taking, because Now we're into May. I ordered it at the beginning of March, and it's been released for months. And I'm up in Canada, so I guess I just have to wait longer than everyone else. Okay, so anyways, with the market, I would recommend caution right now. I would caution you from making a big purchase. And if you have comics you're on the fence on, now's the time to sell, maybe. And again, I'm hedging my bets. So, look, if I really thought the sky was falling, I'd be selling everything, and with the intention of buying in 6 months. And I'm kind of hedging my bets by putting some money into 9/6s of the comics that I think have a bright future. And like I don't mind jumping on scarce comics or comics I feel are undervalued. But right now, holding on to the really hot 9/8s or graded comics, to me is it's an easy sell if it's not going to be in your PC. And I do have a PC now, so I'm not selling everything. I'm keeping a bunch of the comics I have. I have a bunch at CGC, or I have a bunch being pressed, and then it'll be on to CGC. So it's going to be a few months for those. Um, I don't know, my wall's coming along quite nicely. So I wanted to talk a little bit about covers as well. And one of the things that I've really heard over and over again is, oh, these are the most undervalued comics in the Bronze Age or in the Silver Age, and like, can you believe that Doctor Strange's first appearance isn't worth $10,000, $20,000? I can't believe that. And I would say that a big part of comics is the cover for obvious reasons, but some people still don't put enough into what the cover looks like. And so, as you can see behind me, I have a couple choice covers that I've pulled out that are on my wall that aren't going anywhere or will be upgraded if anything. And these are the kind of covers where you want in your collection and that are going to have value long term. So starting over here, we have Hulk 340. This is the number one Todd McFarlane cover. They did a ranking of all his covers, and this came out as number one. It is one of the biggest Wolverine covers, and I would suggest after Hulk 181, it's probably the most desirable, at least to me. And there's no first appearance in that comic. It is the second battle, or like the rematch between Wolverine and the Hulk. Next, I have the Wolverine Limited series and number one. And this is a classic Frank Miller comic. It's just like a great cover where you can just, like you don't want to mess with Wolverine. He looks like the devil. You got the red background. He's got this look like he's gonna gut you, and it's a classic cover, and certainly has been a chase cover lately. It was one of the first Wolverine comics that I was targeting when I got back into comics. I actually bought this, I think, before the pandemic started, to give you an idea of how important it is just for regular people. Amazing Spider-Man 300. I would suggest this is the ultimate Spider-Man cover, Venom cover, just an iconic cover where, yes, there are a lot of them, but really every single collector that likes Spider-Man or Venom must have one in their collection. And then the Spider-Gwen. It's new to my wall, but honestly, it's a standout and it's a stunning cover, and I don't think it gets appreciated the way that it should or that it will in time. And it's just a cool cover. So I brought these comics out to say the cover does matter. And going forward, like with some of these covers, I've just kind of missed the boat. If I started collecting, 4 years ago, 3 years ago, I would have a 9.8 Hulk 340. I would have a 9.8 Wolverine 1 because the prices back then were reasonable. Obviously, 9.8s are desirable, and now that there are a lot more people in the market, we really see how valuable 9.8s may be. And now that I'm in comics and I recognize that these covers are important, I don't have a 9.8 of them. I will not be, spending all my money anytime soon to try and get 9.8 versions. And I feel like I've just kind of missed the boat. Like with moderns that are 9.8s. Like if you don't have an Ultimate Fallout 4 and a 9.8 and you intend to keep that, now is like now is probably not a good time to buy one, or maybe it is and it's the cheapest it's ever going to be. I don't know. Ultimately, I have a 9.6 and I'm going to live with that for the time being. I say that because when I look at comics like this, these are, from 2021. This is going to be one of the chase comics in 10 years, in 20 years, in 30 years, and you're going to have very few 9.8s of the 55 with the black covers, and there really aren't that many of these to begin with, so they're both going to be chase comics. And I think going forward, if I see a comic that I think is going to be big, first of all, I'm going to be buying a chunk of them, and I'm not going to be afraid to grade and get those 9.8s. So I look at Strange Academy. I have a lot of Strange Academies being graded right now. Strange Academy 1. I think that's an important comic, and I think like really even the last couple months, I'm seeing that comic. It's not being posted for less than say 130 US, just for a raw uh, cover A. And it's kind of showing that how quickly the market dries up. If you look at Something is Killing the Children, I do not have a 9.8 of cover A of Something is Killing the Children. I now think it's an iconic cover. If you had to ask me back in September, I would have told you I'm not interested in that comic. I don't think it's cool enough. I actually bought a Frizzen, unlocked variant of Something is Killing the Children #1. I do have a couple foil, like a couple foil, what do you call it, New Comic Book Day copies that I thought at the time were really cheap. And like it's been a slow build where now you're seeing those go up in price, but for a long time you could get those for $10. And I bought a few, and I have one at CGC, and you know a couple more in a box, and that's just kind of like a hold for me. It's not much money. I lost my train of thought. Basic, basically, going forward, I'm going to try and get 9.8s of the comics that I think are important and iconic, and I'm holding it to a high standard. So when I'm thinking about a big comic, I'm looking at something like this. I'm looking at something like this, where 10 years from now, this is going to be a chase comic where there aren't a lot of 9.8s, and in the future, I think moderns, like moderns from 2020 on, are definitely going to be 9.8 or bust. And so any 9.6s, 9.4s I get back, I'm going to be selling, like up Strange Academy, for instance, or maybe not Strange Academy, but anything else really, like a Venom 3. I had a 9.6, sold right away. And I just, a Thor God of Thunder 2. First, Gore the God Butcher, sold right away. Just, I don't think 9.6s are going to be valuable in 10 years or 20 years for the ultra modern comics. And I don't think that Edge of Spider-Verse is ultra modern. I don't think Young Avengers is modern. I think that now because of the pandemic, because of just this run on CGC. You're going to see so many comics coming back that are, nines, 9.2s, 9.4s, 9.6s, where people do not want them, and you're going to see in the secondary market where they really go down in price, or that they're really not desirable or holding their value, and it's a supply and demand thing. So um, I think that's it for now. I have a couple other video ideas. I'm going to go through scarcity next and really talk about some of the comics that I'm targeting and why I'm targeting them, and why I think that they're still available now, even though they're harder to find, and why they're worth more than they should be. And yeah, I'm going to continue selling my comics, kind of amassing enough money where I can buy for the rest of the year if the right opportunities come up, and I'm going to keep grinding it out. So this has been Grade with Great Expectations. Thanks for watching the video and have a good night.